Hello friends, carrying forward our discussion related to antihypertensive. I heartily welcome you all on the second part of our discussion related to antihypertensive. In the very first part of the antihypertensive, we got introduced to the blood pressure, hypertension, and the various factors that may cause the hypertension. We also got introduced how exactly we can choose a drug that could be helpful for the treatment of hypertension. And now, within this second part of antihypertensive, we are going to discuss about the classification of antihypertensive. So friends, before moving to directly the classification, we should know the basic things related to the classification. So whenever a person is said to be suffer from the hypertension, whatever the cause it may be, it carry out the three changes in our body. The first one, it may result into accumulation of sodium and water. The second thing, it may result into vasoconstriction, or the third one, it may result into increase in rate and force of heart contraction, which may simultaneously result into increased cardiac output. All these three changes results into the hypertension. So while selecting a particular antihypertensive agent, we must need to concentrate to these three factors. So whenever we are studying about the classification, so we should have the drugs belonging to category that may reverse the changes that has been carried out by the causative agent related to these three factors. Means we need the certain drugs that may decrease the cardiac output. We may need the certain drugs that may decrease the rate and force of heart contraction, or we may need the certain drugs that may cause vasodilation, and the very last one, we may need the certain drugs that may decrease the body volume. So there are three general approaches to the pharmacological treatment of primary hypertension. So very first one, we should use the diuretic to reduce the blood volume. As we said that one of the changes that has been carried out in our body is accumulation of sodium and water. So use of diuretics will be useful in that case. Number two, you can employ certain drugs that may interfere with the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. Now, due to the activation of renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, it results into vasoconstriction as well as accumulation of water within our body. So the certain drugs that may inhibit the renin, that may inhibit the action of angiotensin 2, or that may inhibit the action of aldosterone can be used or can be included into the classification of antihypertensive. And the third type of drug that should be introduced as an antihypertensive should belong to a class known as a vasodilator. Means that may be helpful in the reduction of peripheral vascular resistance, or the certain drugs that may be helpful in reducing the cardiac output by acting over the heart by decreasing the activity of heart. So these are the three general approaches that should be used during the treatment of primary hypertension. The word specifically we said primary hypertension just because of what in the previous video we discussed that based upon the etiological factor, the hypertension can be of two types, primary hypertension and a secondary hypertension. So whenever we discuss about the antihypertensives, these antihypertensives are used in the treatment of primary hypertension, while these antihypertensive are found to be of no use in the treatment of secondary hypertension. Whenever you want to treat the secondary hypertension, you need to treat a particular cause that leads to the secondary hypertension. We are familiar with the definition of secondary hypertension. The secondary hypertension is a consequences to the certain diseases, or it is a consequences to the administration of certain chemicals. So withdrawal of that drugs or the drug chemicals or the treatment of a particular disease will be the treatment itself for the secondary hypertension. So whenever we are discussing about the antihypertensive, these are the drugs used in the treatment of primary hypertension. So let us have the classification for antihypertensive. The very first class that can be introduced as antihypertensive, it is diuretics. So diuretics are the agent which may increase the urinary output, which may increase the urinary volume, thereby reducing the salt and water content in our body. These diuretics are further subclassified as thiazide diuretics. Example includes hydrochlorothiazides, chlorthalidone and indapamide. Second diuretic, high saline diuretic. It is also known as a loop diuretics. Example includes furosemide. And the third type of diuretics introduced as an antihypertensive includes potassium sparing diuretics. Examples include spironolactone and amiloride. The second class of agent that can be called as an antihypertensive is sympatholytic agents. The number of subcategories are included as a sympatholytic agent. The very first category that comes under the sympatholytic agent, it is central sympatholytics. Examples include clonidine and methyl dopa. As the name itself indicates, these are the drugs acting over the central nervous system. The central sympatholytics are generally the alpha 2 agonist, which results into the stimulation of alpha 2 receptor in central nervous system, generally towards the brainstem which has the cardiac center. Due to the stimulation of central alpha 2 receptor, it results into decrease in the activity of adrenergic nervous system simultaneously, which is helpful for reducing the blood pressure. The another way by which the sympatholytic agents can act, it is ganglionic blocking agents, and it is said that trimethophan. Trimethophan is an example for ganglionic blocking agent. But nowadays, ganglionic blocking agents are not found to be safe for the treatment of hypertension just because of its toxicity. Trimethophan, being the ganglionic blocking agent, it is non-selective in its function, means along with blocking the adrenergic ganglia, it also blocks the cholinergic ganglia. So it gets suffer from the most of the side effect. Means you get relief from the symptoms of hypertension due to the blockage of adrenergic ganglion, but simultaneously it causes the number of side effects due to the blockage of cholinergic ganglion. For example, towards the GIT, cholinergic nervous system or parasympathetic nervous system is dominant, and due to the blockage of parasympathetic nervous system by trimethophan may result into the GIT problems, for example indigestion and constipation. The third category involved under the sympatholytic agent, these are the adrenergic neuron blocking agent. As we said that ganglionic blocking agents are not used, instead of that the adrenergic neuron blocking agents, examples gonethidine, gonadrel and trazarpines are preferred. So adrenergic neuron blocking agents are preferred over the ganglionic blocking agent just because of their selectivity to affect the adrenergic nerve. These agents do not affect the cholinergic nerve. These adrenergic neuron blocking agents enters into the adrenergic nerve terminals and replaces the noradrenaline or norepinephrine from the storage vesicles. So whenever the action potential reaches to the adrenergic nerve terminals, Adrenergic neuron blocking agents are released into the synaptic cleft rather than norepinephrine or noradrenaline, and thereby reduces the effect of norepinephrine and noradrenaline being hypertensive. Now, another way by which you can accomplish the sympatholytic effect by using the alpha adrenergic blocker. The sympathomimetic agents having the ability to activate the alpha 1 receptors located towards the blood vessels. Due to the activation of alpha 1 receptors located at the blood vessels, it results into vasoconstriction, and this kind of vasoconstriction can be prevented by using alpha adrenergic blocker. So, one should prefer the selective alpha 1 receptor blockers including prazosin, terazosin and doxycycline, while phentolamine and the phenoxybenzamine can be also used, but these are considered as non-selective alpha adrenergic blockers. Beta adrenergic blockers example includes propranolol, metoprolol and atenolol. The number of examples can be included under this category. We have only given the 3 examples. You can increase the list of beta adrenergic blockers with your references. Beta adrenergic blockers acts by decreasing the cardiac output. These beta adrenergic blockers are responsible for the blocking of beta 1 receptors located at the heart, thereby reduces the rate and force of heart contraction. As far as the beta adrenergic blockers are considered, here selective beta 1 receptor blockers can be preferred, including metoprolol, atenolol, acebutolol, because of their selective action towards the heart. Sometimes the another category beta plus alpha adrenergic blocker can be used. Examples include labetalol, carvedilol. So these agents non-selectively blocks both the kind of adrenergic receptor alpha as well as beta. The next classification included it is ACE inhibitor, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor. If we are familiar with renin angiotensin aldosterone system, then we are also familiar with the role of this enzyme known as angiotensin converting enzyme. This is the enzyme which is responsible for the conversion of angiotensin 1 into the angiotensin 2, and this angiotensin 2 is considered as the potent vasoconstrictor, while this angiotensin 2 is also responsible for the stimulation of adrenal gland to release aldosterone. The examples of AC inhibitors includes captopril, enalapril, lisinopril, ramipril, fosinopril. So as we said that angiotensin converting enzyme is responsible for the conversion of angiotensin 1 into the angiotensin 2. So the use of ACE inhibitors will inhibit the conversion of angiotensin 1 into the angiotensin 2. The next category includes angiotensin 2 blockers. So as we said that upon the conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, this angiotensin 2 is considered as a potent vasoconstrictor. It is also responsible for the stimulation of adrenal glands to release aldosterone, and all these changes are carried out by the angiotensin 2 by stimulating its receptor known as angiotensin 1 receptor. So angiotensin 2 blockers, the example include losartan, candesartan, valsartan, telmisartan, and these angiotensin 2 receptor blockers act by blocking the effect of angiotensin 2, which is being known as vasoconstrictor, and stimulation of adrenal gland to release aldosterone. Direct renin inhibitors. So whenever there is a stimulation of renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, this renin is responsible for the conversion of angiotensinogen into the angiotensin 1. So by using the renin inhibitor aliskiren, you can inhibit the conversion of angiotensinogen into the angiotensin 1. Another category of antihypertensives include calcium channel blocker. Calcium channel blockers act via reducing the rate and force of heart contraction. Calcium channels are essential for the contraction of cardiac muscles. But if the calcium channel blockers are used, the contraction of cardiac muscles can be prevented by the use of verapamil, diltiazem, nifedipine, felodipine, amlodipine, and lasodipine. These are the several examples of calcium channel blockers. You can also use vasodilators as an antihypertensive. These vasodilators may be selective towards the arteries or may be non-selective for arteries and veins. The arteriolar vasodilators includes hydralazine, minoxidil, and digoxide, while the non-selective vasodilator, which is being responsible for the vasodilation of arteries and veins, example include sodium nitroprusside. So friends, this is all our discussion related to the classification of antihypertensive, where we got introduced to the various categories of antihypertensives along with their brief mechanism of action and examples. So very soon we will be there to discuss each and every category in detail. In the next video, we will start our discussion related to the diuretics. Till then, goodbye and have a nice day.